to all of you who are joining us live or perhaps catching up on the recording for this, which is the third edition of Interchange, what's become an annual online conference and networking event for Commonwealth Scholarship alumni and also including current scholars. I'm Andrew Chadwick, and I lead the British Council's work on alumni engagement within our higher education team. This includes the work that we deliver on behalf of the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. We're really proud of our association with the Commission in this way, and also the work that we do alongside our colleagues at the Association of Commonwealth Universities on behalf of the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. I really hope that you all enjoy Interchange23. We've been delighted at the level of interest for the registrations for the event, and we're really looking forward to lots of people joining the sessions, different sessions at different times. We've done our best to keep the best bits from previous years with the online engagement and to innovate and change elements of the format. So this year we're stretching the event over 5 days. It actually started yesterday with some networking sessions that if you weren't able to join, you can catch up online. And we're running on a different platform this time, but the essentials remain the same. This is the opportunity for you as alumni from across the Commonwealth to come together to share thinking on global development challenges and to make new connections. There's every functionality on this platform to reach out to other alumni, to introduce yourselves and to make connections. And we hope that that spirit of networking, which is so close to the heart of the alumni program for the Commonwealth Scholarships, that you'll really take advantage of that in this online forum in the same way that you would do in any face-to-face environment. You can drop in and out of the program, you can catch up with recordings later, you can stick with us all the way through live and just stick with us if you like. We'll be delighted to have you as and when you can over the next few days. So as you know, the program has a mixture of discussion platforms, networking sessions, and there are also some professional development workshops on careers and presentation skills. So we hope you'll find plenty to spark your interest and to get you participating. Just a couple of housekeeping points on this current session, which is running as a webinar, and the same points will apply to many of the other future sessions. So it's a webinar. Please post your comments and questions in the chat, and we'll be able to see those and moderate those and read them out if they're questions for one of the presenters, but also you'll be able to read them and see them yourselves and comment and answer and comment on the questions there. Do please be mindful and respectful of other people's opinions and keep comments respectful at all times. We will have time at the end of the session today to answer some questions that are posted, and we're monitoring the chat. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that throughout the session. And as mentioned before, it's a recorded session. And so the recording of it will be posted on the digital channels after the event. So that's it in the way of housekeeping. To kick us off then, I'm delighted that we can begin formally this year's proceedings with a short welcome message from the Right Honourable Lord Goldsmith. Lord Goldsmith is the Minister for Overseas Territories, the Commonwealth, Energy, Climate and Environment at the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, so ideally placed to provide words of welcome for a Commonwealth Scholarship Conference, which has as its main focus clean air, clean energy and clean oceans. So the video, I think, is ready to roll. We'll watch that for the few minutes and then I'll come back to introduce the next speaker.
It's a pleasure to speak to so many Commonwealth scholars and alumni today. I understand there are a phenomenal 700 of you online today, and I have no doubt that you will energize each other to build a better future. Now, as members of the Commonwealth, we share values and a commitment to democracy, development, peace and prosperity. And we know that a healthy planet is key to achieving those aims. And as we degrade ecosystems, destabilize the climate, we'll see people who depend most on those free services are hit first and hardest. Their homes made uninhabitable, their lands unproductive, their livelihoods shattered. And that's why tackling the interlinked crises of climate change and biodiversity loss is rightly a top priority for the UK government and for the Commonwealth. Now, I remember first learning about the destruction of the natural world as a child and thinking it would be up to my generation to reverse that destruction. And I've been committed to that ever since, but the trends have not yet been reversed, which is why I'm so pleased to be speaking to you today, because you have a key role. You are the future leaders and innovators who will have to do better than the generations before you. You'll have a key role in reconciling our economies with the natural world on which we all depend. And the good news is that there is a clear path out of the crisis. The energy transition is already happening far faster than anyone anticipated. Countries like Uganda, Ethiopia, Kenya, leading the way with energy infrastructure, overwhelmingly powered by renewables. And although the same cannot yet be said of the natural world, in Montreal in December, the world did finally wake up to the biodiversity crisis. The Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework commits us all to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030. Protecting ecosystems and biodiversity has been on the Commonwealth agenda for some time. In 2018, Commonwealth leaders adopted the Commonwealth Blue Charter to protect the marine environment, for example, and the UK government is supporting marine communities and ecosystems, including in small island developing states, with our £500 million Blue Planet Fund. We're also delivering on our own pledge to provide up to £11.6 billion of climate finance over 5 years, and we're working with partner countries to help them reduce emissions and adapt to the worst impacts of climate change. And because biodiversity loss both accelerates climate change and increases our vulnerability to it, and because there is no pathway to net zero without massive efforts to protect and restore the natural world, the UK government has committed £3 billion of our international climate finance to solutions that both protect and restore the natural world. Safeguarding and restoring the health of our planet is the greatest and most important global challenge. In fact, it is the defining challenge of our age. And we can only succeed by working together. And that requires solidarity between countries and leadership and commitment in individual countries. And my hope is that each of you will play a part in defining the next chapter of our shared journey by showing leadership, changing things for the better, and restoring the health of our precious planet. Thank you so much.
There we are. Extend all our thanks and to Lord Goldsmith for leaving us that inspiring message of the importance of the role that we can all play to address the climate, the issues facing us with climate change, and the opportunities that Commonwealth scholars and Commonwealth alumni have to really get stuck in and address those challenges. So a big thank you to Right Honourable Goldsmith for those words. We'll now move on, and I'll introduce to you for a few more words of welcome to the British Council's Director for Education, Maddalaine Ansell. Maddalaine has a distinguished history in public service related to education and the higher education sector in the UK, amongst many other things, and has been the British Council's Director of Education for over 3 years. Maddalaine, delighted to have you with us this morning for some brief words of welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. And I'm delighted on behalf of the British Council to welcome Commonwealth alumni, scholars, commissioners, and all the other participants to this event. We at the British Council are really proud, working alongside the Association of Commonwealth Universities, to have supported the Commonwealth Scholarships Programme for over 60 years. And I'm personally always humbled and inspired to hear about what alumni of UK universities from Commonwealth countries achieve after their studies. And I know I'm not alone. Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal, met with Commonwealth alumni on her visit to Uganda in October. and was absolutely delighted to hear about the things that they're doing. And at the British Council, we want to celebrate these achievements and to stay in touch with all the impressive young people who have already, by choosing to study in the UK, forged a strong connection with us. I'm just going to highlight 3 examples here. The first is Sharika Whitelock Bailingsing from Jamaica, and she carried out research into the impact of pollutants in her home country, and particularly informal battery smelting and its crippling effects on children. And her work has been recognised internationally, including by the United Nations, with whom she's created legislative frameworks for lead limits in paints. And this has resulted in Jamaica's first such legal limits, and Sharika's work will protect over 2.9 million people and improve the quality of life of her country's most vulnerable children. My second example is Yasser Yousafzai from Pakistan, who led his region's laboratory response to the COVID-19 pandemic, saving thousands of lives. His laboratory became one of the largest infectious diseases labs in the country, and his team became central in guiding public health policy across the whole country. And Yasser was honoured with the Tamga Imtiaz Medal of Honour, which is one of the highest civilian awards given to Pakistani citizens. My final example, Ajiria Jeannie Amadi from Nigeria, is a partner at Nigeria's SOFA initiative, which works to promote conservation and environmental protection in Nigeria. She leads the Fishing Net Games project to tackle the issue of ghost fishing, where fishing gear that has been lost, dumped or abandoned continues to trap and kill wildlife. In less than 2 years, her work has supported many communities across Nigeria's coast to develop new sustainable ways of fishing, recycling and protecting marine life. And each of these amazing young people were finalists in our Alumni Award programme. And I hope that some of you will be inspired to enter and to share your stories. To stay in touch, we have recently launched Alumni UK, a new global network for people from around the world who have studied in the UK. And we hope that this platform will provide a great way for you to connect across international boundaries and to access professional development opportunities. There's also, of course, an alumni network for Commonwealth scholars, and I hope you're all part of that. But by also joining Alumni UK, you can connect with a wider community of alumni from across the world, and you can register via alumniuk.britishcouncil.org. But back to today's conference. This year, it will highlight research on clean energy, air and oceans, and facilitate discussion around the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission's time-limited programme for 2022 to 2023, which is focused on these areas in response to the UK government's call to action at COP26 in Glasgow. We want to highlight the contribution that Commonwealth Scholarship alumni make towards addressing global challenges, to inspire you to continue your work in these areas and to help you make new connections and develop new ideas. And as Lord Goldsmith has just said, this topic couldn't be more important, combining some of the most pressing global challenges that we face together. And many of you will also be motivated by the sad truth that many of the worst consequences of climate change are felt in Commonwealth countries. I hope you will enjoy Interchange23. Thank you for your commitment to the Commonwealth Scholarships Programme and to tackling global challenges. And I'd now like to introduce Professor Robin Mason. Robin is the chair of the Commonwealth Scholarships Commission in the UK, and he's also Pro-Vice Chancellor International and Professor of Economics at the University of Birmingham. Robin, over to you.
Maddalaine, thank you ever so much. And a huge thanks also to all the colleagues at the British Council, especially to Andrew and to Mays and everybody else in the background who you won't necessarily see. for hosting this third annual alumni conference for Commonwealth scholars, for fellows, and our alumni, of course. And thanks also to Lord Goldsmith. I thought those opening remarks were really excellent. So hello, everyone. It's great to be with so many of you today from so many parts of the Commonwealth. As Maddalaine says, my name's Robin Mason, and I've been chair of the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission in the UK for just over a year now. Now, I was very lucky that I took on the role of chair just as the pandemic was easing. So in fact, my first two events that I participated in as chair were our first in-person event for 2 years, where we welcomed about 450 new scholars from around 28 countries who are studying at universities across the UK at our Connect and Collaborate event last February 2022. And I'll say more about Connect and Collaborate in a minute. And then shortly afterwards, just as this year, was last year's Interchange event, so the equivalent of this one, bringing together all of our alumni and all of our scholars. And so that was just a real pleasure and a real privilege for me. Almost the first two things that I did as chair was to meet all of the incoming scholars and to engage with scholars and alumni. So it's great to be back doing the same thing this year at Interchange23. I just wanted to reflect a little bit on the last year, actually, and as I was doing that, two things in particular strike me. And the first, and of course, I'm going to flatter you, but it's true. The first is just how impressive our scholars and alumni are. Indeed, last week we had, as I'll mention a bit more in a moment, some very senior officials and ministers from the UK government at our Connect and Collaborate event, and indeed we do at a number of our events. And the one thing that I try to do when that happens is to make sure that they don't spend very much time with me at all. Instead, I make sure that they meet as many of our scholars and alumni as possible, because you are what makes the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. We are all about our scholars, we are all about our alumni. And we're incredibly proud of you. And I know when a senior minister met our scholars last week, he was similarly blown away by the energy, the enthusiasm, the outstanding academic excellence of our scholars. So there you are. We're really proud of you, and we're really proud of the role that the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission has played over many decades now, since 1959, 1960, to enable outstanding scholars such as you from across the Commonwealth to further their skills, their abilities, their potential, and importantly, to make a real and lasting difference, both in their home countries and also to the UK. So you're part of our family. We now have over 31,000 Commonwealth scholars since the first group of 175 arrived in the UK in 1960. I don't want to put any undue pressure on you, but our alumni include prime ministers, cabinet ministers, Nobel Prize winners, academics, diplomats, writers, leaders in major organizations, NGOs, and businesses. And the reason why our alumni are so impressive is because of the way in which we go about selecting our scholars. And we look for two things in particular, of course, academic ability and potential, but we also look really carefully for individuals who have got a clear commitment to making a difference in their communities, their countries, their regions, and indeed the world through the impact of their work. And we also look very carefully to find those outstanding individuals who we know are going to benefit the UK universities that they come and study with. So, by my last calculation, it was something like over 40 applications for every scholarship that we're able to award. So it's really competitive, it's really selective. I just wish we could give out more scholarships, of course, but what we know is that when somebody becomes a Commonwealth scholar, they really are an outstanding individual. So I've praised you enough, but the second thing that I want to reflect on in my first year as chair of the CSC in the UK is just how much it's supported by the UK government. Now, you won't know this, but the UK government has maintained its funding for the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission for the next 3 years. And that's at a time when there's really significant pressure on all government budgets. And I mentioned that we had the Connect and Collaborate event last week. Well, at that event, the Right Honourable Andrew Mitchell MP, who's the Minister of State for Development in Africa in the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, came to speak to us in person at the event in London. He met and was suitably blown away by the group of scholars that he engaged with, and he reiterated the UK government's commitment to the CSC and our scholars. And of course, today it was great to have Lord Goldsmith's reiteration of the importance of the work that the CSC does and the work that the CSC scholars and alumni do. So there we are. We have fantastic scholars and alumni, and that fact is really recognised by the UK government, and hence its continued support of the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. So two great things that I've recognised over my first year as chair. The third thing that I've seen as chair, though, is just the quality of the work and the programmes. Of course, the CSC and in partnership with the British Council do, but actually it's all driven by scholars and alumni. And so the great work that is done, and I'm really delighted to see this year's Interchange conference focusing on the topic of clean energy, air and oceans. Now, actually, we have, in parallel to this event, a programme of fellows, we call it a time-limited programme, where 19 fellows come to the UK to step away from their day-to-day work and focus on developing their skills, their networks, and their knowledge in order to deepen and expand their impact in their chosen field. And in fact, we hope that some of those fellows will be able to join us at the sessions throughout the week. So we have this programme of fellows on the topic of clean energy, air and oceans. And so it was great that this interchange event resonates with that programme, and hopefully you'll get to engage with some of the fellows. You don't need me to tell you, and indeed Lord Goldsmith set it up very well for us, how important the overarching theme of climate action and the threat of climate change is. As Lord Goldsmith said, it's a problem created by people of my generation and previous generations, but it's a problem that your generation is incredibly well equipped to tackle. And we want to, through events such as this, provide you with professional development and networks to help you address some of the issues arising from climate change and climate action, protecting natural resources, building resilience, tackling climate change. And in doing that, as Maddalaine illustrated, you'll be joining hundreds, if not thousands, of Commonwealth alumni who are already engaging directly in work focused on environmental issues and climate change. The thing about the climate crisis, of course, is that it's not a single issue. It's highly complex, it's multifaceted, it affects all aspects of our lives, and as a result, it requires a multidisciplinary, broad, cross-sectoral response from agriculture to education to public health to my own area of economics. The climate agenda touches on all of those, and that's why you'll see that the agenda for this event is so broad, and that's why you see so many of these areas being addressed by Commonwealth scholars and alumni as part of their work. If you'd like to find out more about what others are doing, please do look at the latest issue of Common Knowledge, in which you'll find a number of Commonwealth scholars and alumni explaining their work, tackling those most pressing climate and environmental issues. And you'll find out about projects delivered by alumni through the alumni community engagement and the various climate action webinars that the CSE runs. The last thing I'd like to promote in this regard is that at last week's Connect and Collaborate event, one of the keynote addresses was actually delivered by a Commonwealth alumnus, Professor Rolf Pyatt, who's an international policy expert, researcher and speaker on environmental, climate and island issues. Now, Rolf, there's very few people better placed to speak on that. Rolf is currently the United Nations Executive Secretary for the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Convention. And he's a former Minister for Environment and Energy in the Seychelles. He's a 1989 Commonwealth Scholar from the Seychelles. He studied for his BSc in biochemistry at the University of East Anglia. So I really do, it was a fantastic talk, really engaging from somebody who is as expert in the area as anybody out there. So I encourage you to watch the keynote when it's online, when it's published next month. You'll enjoy it greatly, but you'll also learn a lot. So just a flavor of some of the many aspects of climate change and action that the CSE and importantly our scholars and alumni are engaging in. So let me close just by saying, great to engage with you through the Interchange event. Make the most of it. You're here on the platform, connect, collaborate, share ideas, challenge ideas, celebrate the work that others are doing, let people know about the work that you're doing. This is the opportunity for our global community to meet and to network and to learn new things and develop themselves. You'll get in as much as you put out. That's always true. So make sure that you take the initiative. Don't just be passive in these things. Engage. At last week's Connect and Collaborate event, we set scholars the target of making 50 new contacts by the end of the day. So let's see whether you can beat that. That's my challenge to you. Network as much as you can and meet as many new people as you can. I was asked just to close with posing a few questions for you just to think about, either in the question and answer session that we may just do, or actually throughout the course of the next few days. So here are some things for you to contemplate. What can you do as an individual scholar to address the challenge of climate change in your home country? So that's question one. Question two, similar question, but slightly different. What can you all do as a collection of scholars and alumni to address the global challenge of climate change? So not just you as an individual, how do you harness the fact that you're part of a wider network to think about what we can do about the climate crisis? And the third question is, what are you going to do to get the most out of the skills workshops that are part of Interchange23? So what can you do individually about climate change in your home country? How can you harness the power of your networks to address the global challenge of climate change? And how are you going to get the most out of the skills workshops? So enjoy the rest of the event. I know you will. Remember, connect, collaborate, make as many new contacts as you can. And I look forward to meeting you all in person at some point. Thanks very much.
Robin, thank you so much for those words, and for speaking so clearly to us and to everybody to set the context of where the Commission is at the moment, the valuable work it does, and the importance and the high regard that it's held with in the context of the funding to continue with the valuable work that the Commission does, sort of making the really important point of about the impact that scholars go on to have as alumni, as alumni develop their careers and have a significant impact. You're right to say there's such a large number of alumni from this program who have gone on to do to sort of receive public recognition for the work that they've done in positions of authority and influence. But there's everybody who's been a scholar as well goes on to develop in different ways and to take forward the learning they've had from the scholarship, and to take forward their careers in meaningful ways as alumni. So it's some get the public recognition, but everyone gets a chance to make an impact. And the questions that you pose about the challenge, I think for everyone on the call, whether Commonwealth Scholarship alumni or not, for us all is what can we do, and how can we make a difference to address the global challenges of climate change. I'll see if there are questions that have been put, or in the questions and answers section, which I can't see questions in that section yet, but I think there are some questions coming through in the chat. I can see that there's certainly a comment agreeing with your view or your position that the climate change is a collection of many different issues, the multi-dimensional aspects of climate change, agriculture, agriculture, food security, water, sanitation, all of these things sort of intersect. So that's a very interesting comment that we've had in the chat already. And if anybody would like to add to that, or would like to pose a question in the chat, please feel free. I wonder, Robin, if I can ask you while we wait for a question, if you've, if from your, I'm not quite sure, we've all been restrained from our ability to travel for so long and to get overseas, but I suspect it's something that you haven't been able to do. You're probably keen to see, but I wonder if I can ask you, have you had any opportunities to travel and to see the work of Commonwealth Scholarship alumni in action overseas as well as in the UK, or what's been your perception in the last year or so of that side of things?
Yeah, no, Andrew, I confess it was one of the things that I was hoping very much to do in the first 12 months. I had grand plans for getting out there and engaging with alumni in country. That's been a little bit difficult. It's starting up now. So I visited Canada in October and met a very engaged group of Commonwealth scholars there. I'm in India next week, and I'm hoping therefore over the course of this calendar year that there'll be many more opportunities to travel than there were in the previous calendar year, where things were still quite restricted, unfortunately. So watch out. Yeah. I may be coming to a city near you over the course of this calendar year, because you're absolutely right. It's one thing it is great to meet people in person in London, but I'm really keen to engage with our alumni and scholars in country to see for myself the work that's going on.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, thanks, Robert. And I can see someone already in the chat has put in a bid for a visit to Pakistan. We can start a bidding round.
Indeed,
in the chat.
Yes, I don't want it to get too. I don't want it to get too competitive, but Pakistan is very much on the list of places where I would like to go.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, of course, the incredible thing as well, of course, about the Commonwealth Scholarship Programme is that alumni dotted all around the world in all the Commonwealth countries, and of course, some go on to live and working in other countries around the world. as well. So a genuinely kind of global community of alumni.
Indeed, and it is an advantage. I mean, of course, it's a complement to rather than a substitute for in-person events. That for being able to have virtual events like this does enable us to, we'd really struggle to get 700 people globally to a physical event. So it's great to have these online events, but as I say, as a complement to the in-person events that I know we schedule.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, that's very good. Well, listen, I think I can see, I can't see more comments coming in the chat, so I think that we'll they may come through sometimes when there's a feeling that we're about to come to a close, the questions come in. Let me just flick through the chat here.
So Agara, there's a bid for Uganda as well, I think.
That's coming in.
Yeah.
There we are. And there's an interesting question. This is something that would be interesting for us to take forward, a comment about, how we can support alumna in this case, which may be specifically focused on female alumni, to develop and incubate ideas. And that's I'd be interested in your view on that, Robin. It's an interesting one to see actually, the how we can use online tools, not only to come together and network, but also as sort of to generate and get collaboration around ideas, and sort of a genuine online collaboration to sort of forge thinking and perhaps solutions. Things that's certainly something I think we have the potential to do. It's an interesting comment. So from our perspective, very interested to read that.
Yeah, no, I do think that's an interesting idea. I mean, one thing I suppose that it made me think of immediately is don't wait for somebody else. If you've got a great idea, such as, can we bring together female alums to develop and incubate ideas? Don't necessarily wait for somebody to do that on your behalf. You are genuinely empowered as CSE scholars and alumni to do these things yourselves. So, network on this event, find a group of people who are similarly motivated, and convene that group yourself. Of course, the British Council and the CSE can offer a certain amount of support, but I'm also all in favour of people charging ahead and doing things under their own initiative, because actually you can get an awful lot done that way. So feel empowered to do these things rather than waiting for somebody to do them on your behalf. That's part of the idea in this sort of event, is to create those networks that can do that. But Algara, if you let us know more about your idea, because that sounds really interesting, and we can think how best to support it. But in the meantime, crack on and do it.
So that's very good. So listen, so we don't have any more comments in the chat. I think with that we shall we'll wrap up this session a little bit earlier than on the schedule, but there's no harm in that. That's the beauty of the online events. We can take a break, and those who want can connect up for the next session in the program. So we'll draw a close there. Robin, thank you so much again for your time and for speaking to everyone today. And a big thank you to everyone who's joined this opening session to kick things off, to sort of set the tone for all the other sessions that are coming through for the rest of today and over the next few days. We really hope that everyone has a very good and productive Interchange conference. We'll look forward to engaging and hearing your views throughout it, and then getting your feedback afterwards, of course, as ever, so that we can improve and take forward ideas for the next one, whatever flavour that takes. Robin, thank you so much, and I think we'll call it a day there, and speak to people later.
Have a great event.